everybody. I'm Hillary Atkin from the Atkin Report, and I'm so excited to welcome Noiva from The Voice to this edition of Hillary's Happy Hour. Noiva, how are you doing?
I am doing extremely well. So glad to be here.
Well, thank you for being here, and I want to congratulate you on your four-chair turn after your blind audition performing A Change Is Gonna Come, which was so soulful and powerful. And Noiva, it took just 21 seconds for all four coaches to turn for you, including newbies Chance and Niall. But what was going through your head as you were performing and you saw their reaction?
That's a really good question. And first and foremost, I don't take it for granted that, it's amazing to just turn one chair, but I am extremely thankful to have turned all four of the coaches and then to only do it in 20 something seconds. That's just unprecedented. And I am extremely grateful for all of the coaches, first and foremost. In my mind, I think you can probably tell when I noticed it. So in the song, it was right before I was about to go into the bridge of the song. I That's when I opened my eyes because I was into the song. I was into that moment. But at that moment where when I go up, that was the part when I noticed that they were all turned. And I was like, what? Like, oh my God. So I was like, I had to kind of get back into the moment and like remember, all right, finish the song, then worry about that later. So it was amazing. Like I looked and I was just like, what? Okay, all right, this is real. It's happening. And then I finished the song and I felt like this release over me. I needed to get that out. I had a reason but behind choosing that song specifically. And I'm glad that it resonated with all the coaches.
Well, Chance pulled out all the stops for you, starting by blocking Blake, and then he jumped on everyone's name and changed it to Chance. That's never been done before, but it must have still been a tough decision for you, right?
That was a tough decision. And I mean, just like first and foremost, I was not expecting that. It was just like, wait, what is happening? What? He turned Kelly's name to his name? Niall? And Blake, it just in that moment, I was just like, what is going on right now? Like, he is really fighting hard for me. So I was like, you know what? Regardless of, anything that they do, I want to trust my gut. I'm gonna try to trust my gut. And so I was very like thankful that they did everything that they did. Some of the things that they, didn't show in the behind, it's a little behind the scenes info, was that Niall actually, like even after Chance did that, Niall was like, he was like, please just ignore that. Don't look at that. Like, don't think about that. Just please listen to what I have to say. And especially after he found out that I consider myself a pop artist, he was just like, no, dude. He was like, I'm pop. I'm the only one that's pop here right now. And then Kelly was like, wait, I'm pop. And so like him and Kelly got into a thing, like a little tiff about it. And Kelly was like, no. She was like, she was like, you can look at my Billboard chart history. I have way more pop hits and stuff. So it was actually really funny. And it was a cool experience overall. And just to see all of these coaches fighting over me, and then finally just staring at Blake, and Blake is just over there like, hmm. Like he's just mad that Chance blocked him. And that's when I took the opportunity. I was like, you know what? This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. This is Blake's last season. So I need to ask Blake. And then that's when I asked Blake, I was like, Blake, can you do the finger thing for me, please? And then he was like, that's right. There it is. And when he did that, that was one of the coolest full circle moments that I had because I remember watching the first season of the show. the second season of the show, and he would do that, like, a young, like, black-haired Blake, fresh-faced young Blake doing his little finger thing and convincing people to join his team. I remember he did it to Jermaine Paul on season 2. And so, like, it's kind of crazy to, like, be in that moment, and he did it for me. And so I was kind of inundated with, like, just looking at Blake after that moment. Um, and another, behind the scenes moment that really, like, that I connected with Blake on, that really stood out to me was, and I hope I can say this, but was the fact that we both lost siblings, and I was able to tell them, because they asked me, why did you choose that song? And I told them, I was like, well, it traces throughout the lineage of my family. My father was one of the first Black kids in his area within Mississippi, in Hickory, Mississippi, to go to an all-white school when freedom of choice was passed in Mississippi. And he went through a rough time, being the only Black kid in a all-white school. My grandfather was a pastor and was ran off the road multiple times, tried to be run off the road, and his church almost burned down 2 or 3 times. And then losing my brother in the way that we lost him was just something that you hate to have to go through. And that was just something that I was able to kind of tell him about, and tell all of the coaches about. And it really caught Blake's attention when Niall asked me. He was like, do you also, because the thing that I connected on Niall with was my songwriting, because he was like, do you write your own music? And I was like, yeah, actually I do write my own music. And he was like, that's awesome. Like, I felt like you were an artist. Like, I felt like you were a songwriter. And then I mentioned to him, I was like, yeah, just talking about my brother, I actually wrote a song after my brother passed away. And I was able to sing it at his funeral. And Blake, that just piqued his interest. And he was like, I would love to hear, that song that you sang for your brother, because I've also lost a sibling too. And so I got to sing a little bit of my song Breathing Underwater for all the coaches. And that was just a very beautiful moment that, I really, kind of connected with the coaches with again. And Kelly came and she gave me the biggest hug, and Niall, like, just kind of bowed to me and was like, that was a beautiful song. And Blake did the same thing, and he was just like, yeah, that was an incredible song. Thank you for sharing a piece of yourself with us. And so that was probably the highlight moment that no one really got to see, but I'm gonna try to spread it out to the world as much as I can, because it was a beautiful moment to connect with all of them and kind of tell my brother's story as well.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because as the audience, we did not see that, but I'm hoping you will get an opportunity to perform that song to a wide audience. And before we wrap up, I just want to ask you about your musical background, and especially how you came up with your stage name, which is your real name, Savion, spelled backwards. How did you come up with that?
Yeah, so just to talk about my name, I actually was thinking about just going by the nickname that most people call me, and that's Sav. And I was like, that's a little too generic though, and people aren't gonna really be able to find me that much. And I, like, looked it up on Spotify and Apple Music, and there are so many people with that same name. And I was just like, you know what? I need to think of something outside the box. And I could have stuck with just my first name alone, but at the same time, I was like, you know what? I want to do something different. I want to, stand out a little bit more, and, make something that has a lot of meaning, even though, my name itself does have a lot of meaning. My mom, for a long time, she couldn't have a baby again. And I was kind of her miracle baby. And so she actually got my name from Savior, and she took the R off and put an N. And so that's how I got Savion. But then I was like, you know what? What if I just flip the name and then the meaning of the name Noivas in French means will not go. And I was like, you know what? I was like, I can put this like a lot of meaning into that. And for in the case of the voice, I was like, you know what? I will not go. I'm not leaving the voice until I'm either the winner of the voice or I'm in that finale. And like that's going to be like my main thing that gets me there.
Wow, what a story. I love the confidence. I'm with you on that. And we have to wrap up our happy hour, but I want to end it by lifting a glass and proposing a toast to you, Noiva, your continued success on The Voice.
Thank you so much. It was great being here. And like, look, like I do rep my state of Texas all the time. I want to show my belt buckle. You're gonna see a lot more of this in the future. And thank you. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we can do this again soon.
I hope so. Cheers to you.
Thank you.